Hi, this is Vicki with Learning Home Volunteers, and welcome to our learning session on practical life skills or living skills. We are so excited to feature some of these basic skills that will help everybody in your home. You know, our little learners are capable of so much, and they want to do anything and everything that you do. The amazing thing is that they can do much more than we realize. The area of early learning, one of the schools of thought is Montessori, and honestly, they are the best at teaching these life skills. They've actually created a curriculum for 1 year olds, yes, that's 12 months, that can break down each of these tasks so that they can actually do it. And thanks to the generosity of teacher Jackie, we are going to share those methods with you and your learner. So let's get started. We have 3 books in this session. Our first book, Maisie Cleans Up, is written by Lucy Cousins and is part of a series of books all about the things that Maisie can do. Our second book is Henry Helps with Laundry. Well, who doesn't want help with that? It's a never-ending task. Henry can come to my house anytime and help with laundry any day that he is free. Our next book, written by Barbara Jean Hicks, is so funny. We find out that although monsters do not eat broccoli, they eat a lot of strange things that I don't think I want to try. Well, let's get to our session. Our first skill is activity number 1, and we provided 2 sets of materials to fold, some with paper with lines and some cloths. You will find the paper with lines on it in your box and 2 microfiber cloths, which we will use in multiple activities. You know, folding is such a wonderful skill for children to learn at an early age. Although it may seem easy to us, folding requires focus and attention and provides child with practice and control and coordination. The main points we want the child to pay attention to when folding is to match the corners and to know where the fold actually is by running their fingers down the line. Children can also apply their folding skills to helping around the house, such as folding, well, clothes, towels, and even napkins, and hopefully, eventually, one day, their own clothes. Well, when we first practice with the pieces of paper, we'll watch about a demonstration of the method in a moment, but here's the general idea. You take the first piece of paper with horizontal lines and run your fingers across the line, and then turn it over, and then take the 2 corners from the bottom to match up on the 2 corners on the top. You want to show how to match up the corners, and then with your fingers, you want to run around the edge where the dotted lines are. We show the dotted line when it's completed so they could see that they actually folded against those lines. The second one is a vertical fold, and you can show how to hold it vertically by placing one hand on one side and the other hand on the other, and then slide the first hand out and matching the corners on the dotted line. The third piece, which is more complicated, involves a horizontal line and a vertical line. So we don't want to move to this until they've mastered the 2 previous folds. Once the children have practiced on paper, have them practice folding with the cloths. Let's actually watch the demonstration on how to teach your child how to fold. There we see the line because it was folded right down the middle. Amazing. Here she is folding her hand inside by helping get the corners. That helps the paper not move. And again, we see the line. Same mechanism to use for the vertical fold as well. And now the cloth. Oh, that looks great. Well, that was fun. Let's do our next learning activity. Our next learning activity is actually called the sponge transfer. Showing how a sponge works will allow them to help clean up after themselves, such as wiping a table or cleaning up spills. And I think the children are actually going to be really fascinated to see water being absorbed in the sponge. And you can introduce those words so that it's part of their vocabulary as well. We've cut regular size sponges in half, but if you find it's not too big for their hands, feel free to cut it again before you actually get it exposed to water. The idea of this activity is to move water from one bowl to another by using the sponge. This is such an amazing feat, honestly. You have to wait first for the sponge to absorb the water and then use your hand strength to squeeze the water out of the sponge into the other bowl. So in your box, you're going to find two small bowls and a sponge. And again, if it feels like the sponge is too big for your child's hand, cut it in half with scissors before exposing it to water. Let's take a look at how this goes. So we're going to fill up a bowl with some water and you put it on your left side. Montessori moves left to right, just like we read. And you want to place the empty bowl on your right. Now, I know it looks like it's backwards, but that's because we're not looking at it from her perspective. And then using two hands, we want to place the sponge in the bowl of water and press down and then slowly lift off the sponge and then move it over to the other bowl and squeeze. And then you'll repeat this over and ago. So to get this ready for the child, you want to, when they want to repeat it, just switch the bowls again, and then they can move it again from left to right. Let's see this skill being demonstrated to the child. There's all is to it. All right. Well, let's move on to our next activity, activity number 3. Your little learners can actually help set the table. The first skill that they actually need is be able to count and separate the cutlery. So if we have 3 people eating tonight, how many forks do we need? How many knives? How many spoons? These are actually categorization and counting skills that they'll use to help set the table. Now, once they've mastered this skill, we can have them put the items on the table using a placemat. We've included a printable where your learner can cut out the cutlery and circles to be able to put on another piece of paper the dishes and the things that you actually put on your plate, on your place settings when you actually set the table. Once they're cut out, they can use a big piece of paper that we've provided or a piece of cardboard and then glue those pieces to remind them how the table looks when they set it. And then they can actually sit there and actually put the pieces in the little outlines so that the places are perfect for when you sit down to eat. Well, our next activity is activity number 4, dry transfers. And practicing transferring materials that are dry from one place to another will help the children with focus and concentration, as well as helping develop their wrist strength and their hand strength. Now, children can practice transferring not only rice, but other grains, corn or barley, into different kinds of containers. The containers can be equal like they are here, or they could be from one big one to a little one. And they can apply this skill in the home with helping when they're measuring ingredients for cooking or baking. So let's take a look at um, the demonstration here. I think we want to think about, just like with the water, we're going to be transferring from the left to the right, and having your children being used to move their eyes from left to right is a great foundation for reading. You want to support the container with your left hand, tilting it if the stuff is at the very bottom and at the end, and then holding this spoon with your right hand, rotating this wrist to actually scoop up the rice and move it slowly to the empty container, and then dropping it into the new bowl. These bowls that we're using here, which we'd used earlier for the wet transfer of the water with a sponge, we're going to be using again with the rice and later as we sort some stuff as well. So you continue doing all of this until the rice has actually been transferred. And when you get the child to do the activity, you want to just make sure that the rice bowl is on the left and the empty bowl is on the right. So let's take a look at the actual demonstration. Well, that's pretty amazing. I think the thing to note here is, as they're learning these new skills, you see how she's been putting things on the trays. This is a very big part of it because it keeps a mess if they pour liquids or learn problems, to be able to actually contain the mess for you. So if you have a baking tray or a casserole dish, putting all of this stuff inside those will keep the mess in one place. Well, that's all for this week. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for watching.